Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa, live from the Voice of America studios here in Washington. It's Wednesday, April 6th. I am Shaka Sali.
Hello, Shaka, and hello to all our viewers and listeners on the continent and elsewhere. I'm Ian Bior, your social media reporter, standing in for Mariama Diallo.
Today, we'll talk about the role of development partners in promoting democracy and good governance in Africa.
And coming up later in our STA inbox, our audience has weighed in on our topic through emails and Facebook comments, and we'll reveal some of them ahead on Straight Talk Africa.
Democracy in Africa is at a crossroads, with some countries making reasonable progress, while others are sliding back to dictatorship. My colleague Esther Githui Ewart has more on the story.
Indeed, democracy and good governance in Africa has seen gains and in other cases reversals. The survival of democratic institutions largely depends on free and fair elections, as well as transparency in electoral commissions. Then there's the issue of fair and competitive elections. Earlier this year in Uganda, the main opposition candidate Kizza Besigye was arrested and rearrested even long after the elections were over. Ugandan lawyer Nicholas Opio says the country needs to overhaul a biased and weak system.
You have a head of state with a lot of advantage over other candidates. So we need to reform the laws to plug those loopholes, and that is going to be a political process, not a legal process.
In West Africa, Benin stood out as an emerging democracy with about 4.7 million eligible voters casting their ballots to elect a successor to outgoing President Thomas Boni Yayi. Businessman Patrice Talon won the second round of the presidential election. His challenger, former Prime Minister Lionel Zinsou, called Talon to congratulate him on his victory. In Niger, President Mahamadou Issoufou was sworn in for a second term after a disputed vote, which was also boycotted by the opposition. Professor Atahiru Jega is former chairman of Nigeria's Electoral Commission.
Electoral commissions all over Africa need to pay attention to voter education, to sensitization and public enlightenment, because inclusiveness and participation of citizens in elections is very, very important for the governance.
Countries such as Somalia are often referred to as failed states. For decades, efforts to bring stability to a transitional government have been met with pushback and rebellion. The current threat of Al-Shabaab militants have made the country ungovernable and destabilized the region. Unemployed youths from Libya to Eritrea are making perilous journeys to Europe, where they hope for a better future as migrants. Still, other countries like South Africa prove that in a democracy, anyone can be held accountable for misuse of public funds. President Jacob Zuma is facing a political storm to impeach him. The last few weeks, he has been taken to task for using public funds to make some improvements in a private home.
That I never knowingly or deliberately set out to violate the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the Republic. I have agreed to pay for the identified items once a determination is made.
Tanzania's election late last year was hailed as a success, but there was chaos in the island of Zanzibar, where the elections were nullified. In Central Africa, some incumbent presidents have used political maneuvers to remain in power. Burundi's President Pierre Nkurunziza claims his presidency is by divine authority, but plunged the country into bloodshed by running for a controversial third term. In Rwanda, President Paul Kagame will be running for another term that could potentially see him in power through 2034. He changed the constitution through a controversial referendum. DRC's President Joseph Kabila has yet to announce he will not run for yet another term later this year. Analysts say there are strong indications he is not ready to leave office. In Congo-Brazzaville, longtime President Denis Sassou Nguesso shut down social media and phones while campaigning to extend his 32-year rule. John Prendergast, CEO and founder of Enough Project, says the temptation for leaders seeking to extend their terms is too great, but that's not all.
They perceive themselves to have immunity while in power. They fear leaving power, suddenly losing that immunity and being prosecuted for any number of things, mostly corruption, but also some of the human rights abuses that occurred during their tenures.
The Central African Republic endured long political wrangles that divided the country along religious lines. About a week ago, transitional President Catherine Samba-Panza handed over power to Faustin Touadera, who, like others in the continent, swore to defend the constitution of his country. CAR citizens hope he will keep his word. Africa is ready for a change from greed and political chaos and their dreadful human toll. Esther Githui Ewart, VOA News, Washington.